Finally, the knowledge of the Ancient Ones is mine!
Would you like your Mutant Crawl Classic setting to include familiar objects or locations that are clearly Earth-based? If you follow the documented theme of the Terra A.D. Mutant Crawl Classic setting as described in the core rulebook, you are encouraged to not have anything recognizable from 21st century Earth, including the land itself. And I quote, "Taking its cue from its elder sibling, the world of Mutant Crawl Classics RPG is an undiscovered country, wild and mysterious. Ideally, the player should never be certain whether the game setting even takes place on Earth, or perhaps on some other parallel planet or plane." The elder sibling referenced is Gamma World, a game I owned as a boy, specifically the 3rd edition, the spiritual ancestor of Mutant Crawl Classics. Even after decades, however, old elusive memories rattling around in my brain whispered to me that something about the world being mysterious wasn't quite aligned with the Gamma World I remembered. So I actually went out and got a reprinted copy of the 3rd edition from Drive-Thru RPG and confirmed with the following quote. "Gamma World's science fantasy role-playing system is an exciting game of action and adventure set in the savage land of radioactive wastes that is 25th century America." Now, don't get me wrong. Generally speaking, I really like what I've seen of Mutant Crawl Classics. Everything that is cool about Dungeon Crawl Classics applies to MCC as well. Before you lay into me in the comment section, hear out my dilemma and my simple solution to it. I see very little within the MCC rulebook covers that would not be able to apply to a setting more like what I had in mind. I also realize that there is a third-party DCC-compatible world setting in the American Survival Guide. I actually bought a PDF copy of that and Crawling Under a Broken Moon, which is specifically set in a weird post-apocalyptic America. So I could play that to satisfy my itch, and I may well do that someday, though I'd probably want to go all in with the print books. That said, MCC has a lot to like, and my quibbles with the setting really don't have much to do with the bulk of the gameplay that players would experience, so I was determined to do what I could and make MCC my own. It's not that I need the setting to be that of Pittsburgh, Pitzburke, a post-apocalyptic Pittsburgh from Gamma World's 3rd edition. I just had a mind brimming with ideas of things that the players could recognize pop up in an MCC game with fun cultural references now and then. Perhaps it would be a run-down centuries-old amusement park. Perhaps an enclave of mall employees had developed a new culture and city within the confines of a remote shopping mall. Even the third-party adventure module I had purchased along with the MCC Rules fan starter kit, Mutants in Toyland, because my son is into Five Nights at Freddy's, was not really as likely in a non-Earth setting 3,000 years into the future. So in short, I had jumped with both feet into MCC without realizing that a lot of the adventure ideas I had in mind were not going to work if I took the rules as gospel and insisted that, as such, they had to cover the entirety of the Mutant Crawl Classics world. To give a little hint, all was not lost. Make your own setting, you might say, a Forgotten Realms to a Greyhawk, since both could use the same rules. I believe that the DCC rulebook has a judges section specifically stating something along the lines that it expects game masters to change rules. I just wanted to make sure I understood the implications of any change. Straying too far from the MCC default setting would probably make it difficult to maintain a common theme with any cool, upcoming, published MCC adventures, and I wanted my setting to remain compatible with those. So my simple solution is one that keeps everything pretty much intact. Well, aside from the suggested number of years that have passed since the Great Disaster, but I'll get to that later. The solution? Make the MCC rulebook's Terra A.D. setting into a region within the larger world. Little did I know that while editing and doing a little research for this video, the creator of Mutant Crawl Classics, Jim Wampler, had already opened the door to this idea with a very regional-looking world map that could be used with Mutant Crawl Classics called Omega Terra. It's not mentioned anywhere in the MCC rulebook that I could find, but you can find it at mudpuppycomics.com as a PDF. It's described as the post-apocalyptic campaign world of Jim Wampler. A savage retro future dominated by hothouse jungles, sometimes punctuated by crater countries, glow deserts, and shattered mountains. There are mutated plants and animals, many of them intelligent. These mutated life forms breathe, live, and fight for survival, in a land built on an old substrate of a fallen technological civilization. It does indeed sound like the world described in the MCC rulebook, and even has what appear to be locations of some MCC module names, though I could be wrong. Again, I'm not super familiar with everything yet. This is still relatively new to me. That said, it has a very distinct shape that I dare say looks a bit like North America. In any case, the main takeaway for me is not the map itself, since it's not included in the MCC rulebook, but rather the idea that even Jim's world map appears to be only a section of world. I say appears due to the way it resembles a map of the United States, which would imply more to the world. And that's all I'd want to see. More. And that's where we can expand to. Again, I don't want to discourage anybody from playing the MCC world just as it is. It just didn't fit with some preconceived notions I had that were based on the old 1980s Gamma world. And that's my issue, which I'm trying to resolve for myself. And if you like, please come along for the ride. No convoluted explanation is really required. It's elementary. Many cultures and societies throughout history have had no concept of a world outside of their immediate surroundings. They thought the limited world they knew was the center of everything, and there wasn't much more to see. Whether that worldview was limited to a handful of villages, or a vague knowledge of more distant lands, it was still limited. Even the Spanish, with advanced map-making and seafaring skills and technology at their fingertips, had very different expectations when they landed on the shores of the Caribbean islands in 1492. And the indigenous people they met, well, to many their misfortune, they surely had seen no people quite like the Spaniards before. So it goes almost without saying that for a Stone Age society, it's even easier to imagine that most inhabitants would have very little concept of what might exist across the sea or even 100 miles northward, especially with difficult terrain. With this in mind, it's easy for me to advocate for cultures and backdrops that vary greatly in the broader world of Terra A.D. than what the rulebook describes, while still staying true to the MCC theme and simply stating that the area where most adventures in the MCC world start are in that Stone Age region. With the advent of the upcoming release of MCC Adventure 14, Mayhem on the Mag Train, we all may have a better reason than ever to consider expanding the world beyond the kumbaya embrace of the clan of the Cog and Seekerdom to something more beyond. Was your warrior from the future able to return to his tribe and forget the wonders he saw? Perhaps. Or perhaps not. Now there's still that pesky matter of the thousands of years having passed since the Great Disaster, according to the MCC rulebook. Thousands of years is a really long time for much of anything recognizable to survive out in the open, unless it's something as durable and relatively untouched as, say, the Egyptian pyramids. A red Volkswagen? Good luck. Some of you may know what I'm referring to. The sources listed in the MCC rulebook's Appendix M, some of which show crumbling cities like New York and even fully intact cars with their paint jobs. The solution to this anachronism? Keep it simple as well. To the Stone Age people of the Terra A.D. region, the time since the disaster seemed like a millennia. The disaster actually occurred only hundreds, not thousands of years ago. Perhaps they measure time by seasons or moons rather than years, and that contributed to their confusion. It's possible that MCC's standard ventures could reference the thousands of years, however, so just watch out for this, especially with AI conversations if you decide to go with the sort of setting I have in mind. In my next video, I'll go into the benefits of having the MCC Terra A.D. setting as a region. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you next time.